The conference room had no windows. Halden had a lot of rooms like that. I guess when you do work, nobody wants to put on paper. It helps not to have anybody looking in. I was sitting at the long table with a foam pie box by my elbow, half a slice of pumpkin pie still in it. That was the whole holiday as far as Halden was concerned. The day before, most folks had been home with family. I was in Springfield eating cold pie under fluorescent lights. The door opened and Eliana came in. She wore a gray suit that looked like it had never been sat in. Her hair was pulled back tight as always. Eliana didn't hurry anywhere, but she moved fast enough that people got out of her way. She had a folder under one arm. I knew that folder before she put it down. It was thick, dark blue with the Halden reclamation stamp on the front. No job number, no client line. Nothing but my name printed across the tab. She slid it over the table to me. "Open it, Randy." I didn't touch it right away. The pie box was between us, and I moved it aside first. Seemed polite somehow. Inside was a new badge form, salary sheet, title change, the whole deal. Site chief, corner office on the top floor, the kind with actual windows looking out over the loading yard. My pay had a number on it that made me read it twice. "That doubles me," I said. "It does." I looked over the papers again. 11 years with Halden, 11 years in coveralls, crawling around condemned plants and storm drains and places where the government wanted something gone without making a public fuss over it. They'd been telling me the office was coming for a while. Not promising it exactly. Halden didn't promise much of anything. They just kept putting the carrot a little farther down the road. "You finally got tired of me asking?" I said. "The position is available." That's not what I asked. Eliana sat across from me. She put both hands on the table, not folded, just flat there like she was waiting on a report. "The folder makes you site chief, doubles your salary and gives you the office," she said. "One condition." There it was. I closed the folder but kept my hand on it. "What kind of condition?" "One final assignment. It will not be entered into the usual system." That part didn't bother me much. Not yet. Halden did regular cleanup work. Chemical spills, mold jobs, old tanks leaking into places they shouldn't. Then there was the other work. Federal work mostly. The stuff that came through with no paperwork and no real client name. Nobody called it off books out loud. But that's what it was. A job would appear. We went out. We cleaned it up. Then it vanished. "Who wants it gone?" I asked. "Federal officials." "Where?" Eliana looked at the table monitor built into the middle of the conference table. It was black glass until she touched a button on the side. "I will show you." I leaned back in my chair. "I've cleaned up worse scenes for a parking lot bonus." Eliana didn't smile. She didn't even blink much. The monitor came on with a low hum. A gray screen first, then a file page with a picture loading in the middle. The heading read, "Cascade Bay Aquadome, Branson, Missouri." I looked at the first photo. It was one of those indoor water parks built to look cheerful from the highway. Big white dome, tube slides twisting around the outside, rainbow paint all over the front sign, though most of it had faded down to something washed out and sad. The parking lot was empty. "That place shut down," I said, "years ago. In 2016. There was a drowning. A child drowned in the wave pool." I remembered hearing about it. Everybody around Branson heard about it for a week or two. Then the place closed and somebody else bought it, or said they were going to. Nothing ever came of it. Eliana tapped the screen again. More pictures came up. Broken gate, cracked pavement, water stains along the dome walls. One shot showed an old ticket counter behind dusty glass. Another showed a hallway with black water covering the floor. It didn't look like a water park anymore. It looked like a bad place to send men. "What's the assignment?" I asked. 11 maintenance contractors have gone missing inside the building over the last 3 weeks. I looked at her. Missing how? They entered to inspect a reported plumbing failure. None returned. 11? 11. That was a lot of people to lose in 3 weeks. Even Halden would have trouble making that kind of thing disappear if it got out. The next picture was an aerial shot. The dome sat by itself beyond a strip of road and dead fields. Nothing close around it but weeds and empty ground. County hasn't been in there? I asked. The Taney County Sheriff's Office was notified of asbestos contamination. There's asbestos? No. I nodded. That was more like it. A false notice on a gate would keep most deputies clear of the place. Nobody wants to breathe poison for a job that doesn't pay enough to cover dry cleaning. And the federal people want it erased, I said. They want the incident contained. Same thing. They have not asked for an investigation. Of course they hadn't. I looked down at the folder again. Site chief, new salary, office. All mine if I took one more ugly job and kept my mouth shut after. The job had to be bad. Eliana didn't hand out money like that because somebody had a clogged drain in Branson. You got a team lined up? I asked. 4 technicians. Equipment? It will be provided. What are we cleaning? Eliana was quiet for a second. That was unusual. She reached across the table and touched the monitor again. The photos disappeared. A video file sat in the center of the screen with a timestamp beneath it. Before you decide, she said, there is something you need to see. Then she started the recovered phone video. The video came up shaky and dark. For a second, all I could see was a white circle from a headlamp bouncing off tile. Then the man holding the phone turned enough that I could see the hall ahead of him. Water covered the floor ankle deep. It was one of those back halls built behind the rides. Exposed pipes overhead. Blue tile on the walls. Rust around the drain covers. The sort of place nobody sees unless something breaks. The contractor was breathing hard. "Hello?" he called out. His voice came back thin off the tile. He walked a few more steps. The water pushed around his boots in little waves. His phone kept dipping toward it, like he was trying to get a look at something down there. At first I didn't see it. Then a flat shape moved under the water. It wasn't swimming. It was more like a shadow sliding under clear plastic. Long and low, darker than the water around it. The headlamp beam passed over it and it was gone. The man stopped walking. "Is somebody there?" he said. The water rippled. Not away from him either, toward him. Ripples ran across the floor and climbed the tile wall. I watched them go up maybe 3 feet, water hanging there where water had no business hanging. The contractor backed up. His boot hit a dry patch by the wall. He almost got clear. Then the water surged around the edge of the dry patch and caught his other foot. He screamed. The phone spun sideways. All I saw was tile, his leg, and water boiling around his boot. He tried to pull free. Both hands went down into it. That was when it folded him. I don't know any better way to say it. His body bent down into that shallow water like somebody had shoved him through a hole in the floor. His shoulders went first, then his head. His arms slapped against the tile and vanished after him. He was yelling right up until there was nothing left to yell with. The phone lay there filming the puddle. The water went still. Eliana watched the screen without moving. I was still looking at it too, waiting for the man to come back up. He didn't. "That is the damp," she said. "The what?" "The presence inside Cascade Bay." I looked over at her. "You knew it was there." "We knew something was there." "That's a hell of a difference." Eliana touched the edge of the monitor but didn't turn it off yet. The last image on the screen was water and tile. Nothing moving. Nothing at all. "It lives in standing water," she said. "Nobody touches standing water, Randy. That is the rule." I kept watching the puddle. It can't come out. It cannot cross dry ground. That sounded simple enough. Too simple. Most things that kill people don't come with one clean rule you can write on a clipboard. The video skipped ahead. The picture jumped. The phone had been moved, maybe by another contractor. It was pointing down a dry stretch of tile now. No water, no feet. Just a service hall lit gray by some emergency light farther down. Then I saw the print. One wet boot print sat in the middle of that dry floor. It was pointed toward the camera. There wasn't another print behind it. Nothing leading up to it. Nothing past it. Just one dark wet mark, like somebody had stepped down from thin air and stopped there. "Hold it," I said. Eliana's finger hit the screen. The video went black. What was that? The footage is incomplete. It was a boot print. It was one image in a damaged recording. It was on dry tile. She looked at me then. Gray eyes. No worry in them. No surprise either, which I didn't much care for. "The operation has one safety rule," she said. "Do not touch standing water." I sat back in the chair. There it was again. The rule. Like saying it twice made that boot print go away. "You got any more rules?" I asked. "No." I let out a breath through my nose. I had worked enough bad sites to know when somebody was feeding me the part they wanted me to have. Chemical plants, sinkholes, old buildings with bad air and worse wiring. Halden always had a safety packet until the job got strange enough. Then suddenly there was one rule. Eliana brought up another page on the monitor. This one had a truck inventory on it. Industrial dehumidifiers, drain pumps, hoses, cords, salt. A lot of salt. "You will have a box truck," she said. "The equipment has been loaded." "How much salt?" 40 pallets. I looked at her. 40? 40 pallets. That was enough salt to make a small warehouse dry out and apologize for it. I figured they wanted every inch of that place sucked dry, from the wave pool to the last clogged pipe in the back. 4 technicians are assigned to you," she said. "They report in the morning." "Who picked them?" "Operations." Of course they did. Halden had sent green men into bad places before. Not always green, but close enough. Somebody cheap. Somebody who couldn't turn down the hours. If one got hurt, there'd be forms. If one didn't come back, there'd be more forms. Then somebody higher up would say it was unfortunate. I hated that word. "How long do we have?" I asked. "Until the site is dry." That's not a time. It is the only relevant one. I looked at the black screen again. That wet print was still sitting in my head. One mark on dry tile. The damp couldn't cross dry ground, Eliana said. Maybe it couldn't. Maybe there was something else walking around in there. Either way, I wasn't taking 4 men into that building blind. But the folder was still under my hand. Site chief, better pay, an office with windows. 11 years of crawling through filth and dangerous places, and there it was. All I had to do was clean up one more nightmare for Halden. "I'll take it," I said. Eliana nodded once. "I assumed you would." That irritated me some, but she was right. I closed the folder and held it against the table. The 4 they gave me were coming back out. That was the job as far as I was concerned. Halden could have their dry water park and their forgotten incident after that. Nobody was getting turned into paperwork. Eliana shut the file. The monitor went dark with a soft click. "The truck is loaded," she said. "Your crew reports to the loading yard in the morning." I folded the promotion folder under my arm and walked out. By dawn, I was back in Halden's loading yard with the folder under my arm. The place was all wet concrete and diesel smell. Trucks sat in rows under the yard lights. The sun was coming up behind the warehouse, but it wasn't doing much yet. Our box truck was back to the dock. It had the Halden logo on the side and a roll-up door hanging open in back. Inside were drain pumps, coils of hose, and 4 big dehumidifiers strapped down against the walls. There was salt stacked clear to the front. A white line of it had been poured across the concrete by the truck. I stood on one side of it. Jude was on the other. He was thick through the chest and arms, with a stained jacket over his coveralls and a ball cap pulled low. He had the kind of hands you get working plumbing for a long time. Knuckles split up, nails dark around the edges. He looked at the truck, then at me. "So you're the field lead," he said. "That's right." Jude gave a little snort. "Halden got so many chiefs now they need a whole extra parking lot for them." I let that sit there. He hadn't crossed the salt line. None of them had. That mattered more than whether he liked me. Jordan was down on one knee a few feet away, wrapping silver tape around the plastic sheeting at her boots. She had her coveralls tucked tight and neat. No loose cuffs, no gaps at the ankles. She pressed the tape down with both thumbs, then tugged it once to make sure it held. She wore a little silver crucifix at her throat. Jordan looked up at me. "Do you want the tape over the boot edge or under it?" she asked. "Over," I said. "If something runs down your leg, I want it stopped before it gets inside." She nodded. "That makes sense." Theo was standing beside her with a duffel bag at his feet. He was young, real young, thin enough that his oversized jacket hung off him like it belonged to somebody else. He kept shifting the bag with his boot and looking at the truck. He was trying hard not to look scared. He wasn't doing a great job. Travis was at the loading dock with a split salt bag over one shoulder. Salt had dusted one sleeve of his coveralls white. He carried it into the truck and set it beside the last pallet without making a sound. Then he came back out for another one. Jude looked down at Theo's duffel. "You packing for a swim meet, Theo?" Theo bent down fast and pulled the zipper closed. "No, I brought extra socks, that's all, in case things get wet." Jude laughed at that. "You expecting the water park to have a gift shop, kid?" Theo's face went red. "I just figured dry socks would be useful." "Jude," I said. He looked over at me. "What?" "Leave him alone." Jude held my eyes for a second. I could see him deciding whether he wanted to make a thing out of it. Then he shrugged and turned back toward the truck. "Fine. Kid can bring a whole damn closet for all I care." Travis passed him carrying another salt bag. Jude stepped out of the way without saying anything else. I waited until Travis had the bag loaded. Then I looked over the 4 of them. Jordan was standing now. Theo had both hands on his duffel strap. Jude had his arms folded. Travis stood by the open truck door with salt dust on his gloves. "Listen up," I said. Nobody talked. "This place has one rule, just one." Jude looked at the salt line on the ground. "That's comforting." "It means you remember it," I said. "No boot, glove, tool, or hose carries water across a salt line. Say it back to me." Jude shook his head. "You serious?" "Say it." He looked annoyed. That was fine. Annoyed men still listened sometimes. "No boot, glove, tool, or hose carries water across a salt line." "Again." Jude's eyes narrowed. "I said it." "Again." He let out a breath. "No boot, glove, tool, or hose carries water across a salt line." I nodded and looked at Jordan. She didn't need time to think about it. "No boot, glove, tool, or hose carries water across a salt line," she said. Her voice was calm, like she was reading off a job sheet, but she had one hand curled around that little crucifix. Theo went next. "No boot, glove, tool, or hose carries water across a salt line." His voice cracked a little on hose. I looked at Travis. He gave one short nod. "No boot, glove, tool, or hose carries water across a salt line." Then I said it myself. "Nobody touches standing water. Nobody carries it. Nobody brings it home on their boots." Jude rubbed at his jaw. Salt lines what? Some kind of magic fence? Jordan looked at him. Actually, it doesn't have to be magic. Jude gave her a look. Oh, good. Here comes the science lesson. Jordan didn't rise to it. She just pointed at the white strip across the concrete. Water can bridge it, she said. One wet footprint could make a path across that line. If you step through it after that, you've carried it with you. Jude looked down at the salt. That's meaningless. No, Jordan said, it isn't. She said it quiet. That made it land harder. The salt gives us a dry boundary. If the boundary gets wet, it isn't a boundary anymore. So we keep our boots dry. We keep the hoses dry. We don't drag anything through water and then over salt. Theo stared at the line like he hadn't really seen it until then. What if a hose gets wet by accident? He asked. Then it stays on that side, I said. You call it out. You don't guess. You don't try to be helpful. He nodded quick. Okay, yeah, I got it. Jude looked toward the truck. So we're hauling 40 pallets of salt down there to draw lines around puddles. We're hauling it down there to stay alive, I said. That shut him up. Travis came out with the last split bag. The pallet jack was behind him, loaded with the final stack of salt. He pushed it slow over the dock plate, his big hands steady on the handle. The wheels rattled into the truck. Jordan checked the tape around her boots one more time. Theo picked up his duffel and put it behind the passenger seat of the second truck. Jude climbed in after him, still muttering under his breath. I didn't need to hear what he said. The folder was on the passenger seat when I climbed into the box truck cab. I looked back through the open door and raised a hand to Travis. He nodded once and pulled the roll-up door down over the last salt pallet. I started the truck and eased it away from the dock. The support van pulled out behind me. I saw it in the side mirror once we got clear of the warehouse. Travis was driving. Jude rode shotgun with his ball cap pulled down. Jordan and Theo sat in back with the gear. We took United States 65 South. Branson was waking up when we came through. The big hotels had their signs on. There were fake castles and pirate ships and places selling breakfast to folks who'd spent too much money the night before. It was all bright paint and big promises. Then it fell away behind us. The road opened up and the traffic thinned out. A few cars passed northbound. Nobody was headed our way. I had the phone clipped to the dash. It still showed service then. 2 bars. Not much, but enough to call out if a tire blew or somebody got hurt. That was more than I expected once we got closer. The box truck rode heavy with all that salt in it. I could feel every crack in the road through the seat. The dehumidifiers were strapped down behind me, big metal things with hoses and wheels. They'd pull the wet out of the air. That was the idea anyway. I checked the mirror again. The van stayed right behind me. Jordan's voice came over the radio. Randy, I need a minute. I picked up the handset. What is it? The tape around my right boot is peeling up. Pull over? No, I can fix it here. I just wanted everyone to know I'm not stepping out until it's sealed. Copy that. I watched the van drift a little inside its lane. Jordan had probably got 1 foot up on the seat, working at the plastic around her boot. The tape they used was silver and sticky enough to pull hair off your arm, but it didn't like damp surfaces. Nothing did. A minute went by. Then Jordan came back on. It's sealed again. Good. Her voice stayed on the radio. 1 wet footprint can bridge a salt line. Check your boots every time you cross one. Jude answered before I could. You think we're gonna forget? We're hauling half the ocean's worth of salt. Jordan didn't rise to it. I think people get tired. That's when they miss things. Theo came on next. I checked mine before we left. Both boots. The plastic too. Good, I said. Keep doing it. Jude made a sound over the radio. Not quite a laugh. You got us checking our socks next? I looked out at the fields. They had been cornfields once. I could see the rows still, long brown lines running away from the road. But nothing was growing. The stalks were dead and flattened down, pale as old straw. There weren't any houses close by either. Just fields. I picked up the radio again. Theo, when we get there, you inspect every dehumidifier reservoir, twice. Nobody moves forward until you do. There was a little pause.
Twice?
Theo said.
Twice. Okay, I can do that.
Jude came back on.
Dehumidifiers are safe. They pull water out of the air.
Jordan answered him right away.
Actually, they store that water in a tank. Yeah, so the tank can overflow.
The van stayed close behind me. I could see its white hood bounce in the mirror every time we hit a seam in the road. Jordan kept talking.
Each machine stores that water in a reservoir. If it fills and nobody notices, it makes a puddle inside an area we've already cleared.
Jude was quiet for a second.
Then we empty the damn things. Yes,
Jordan said.
Before they overflow.
That was a fair point. More than fair. I had been looking at those machines as the answer. Get them running, dry the place out, put salt at the doors, and keep going. Simple enough on paper, but every one of them had a tank inside, a tank full of water. Water we made ourselves. I looked down at the radio. Jordan's right, I said. Theo checks the reservoirs. Jude, you check after him. Travis checks after Jude. Nobody said anything for a second. Then Travis came over the radio.
Okay.
Jude let out a breath.
Fine, everybody checks everything.
That's the job, I said. The fields kept rolling past. There were spots where water sat low beside the road, black and still in the ditches. I stayed in the middle of my lane and tried not to look at it too long. It was just runoff, rainwater, muddy ditch water. Didn't matter much what it was. Nobody touched standing water. The phone on my dash went down to 1 bar. I watched it there for a while. The little mark blinked once, then held. Theo's voice came through the radio again.
Randy, are we going to have service at the site?
I don't know.
I mean, if we need to call somebody.
We use the radios.
Right, yeah.
He didn't say anything after that. The last gas station we passed had 2 old pumps out front and a handwritten sign in the window. I couldn't read it from the road. There was 1 pickup parked beside the building. No other cars. No people out front. Then even that was gone. The road ran between dead fields and low hills. The sky had turned the color of dirty dishwater. I couldn't see a town anywhere. My phone lost its last bar. The screen sat there blank except for the time. I tapped it once with my thumb. Nothing changed. No service. I put my hand back on the wheel. If somebody got hurt now, nobody was coming quick. Maybe nobody was coming at all. We had the radios, the trucks, the pumps, and 40 pallets of salt. That was what Halden had sent us out with. I checked the mirror. The support van was still there. Then I saw color ahead of us. At first, I thought it was another billboard. Branson had plenty of those, even miles out, but it got bigger as the road bent around a stand of dead trees. The faded rainbow Cascade Bay Aquadome sign rises over a cracked, empty parking lot ahead, the sealed dome and tube slide standing alone among miles of fields. The sign got bigger as we came around the bend. Cascade Bay Aquadome. The rainbow over the letters had faded bad. Half the colors were peeled away. Beyond it was a parking lot split up with weeds and cracks. The dome sat behind it all. It was huge, gray and dirty under the low sky. Tube slides curled around the outside like dead snakes. There wasn't another building close enough to matter. I turned through the gate and drove the truck up to the front doors. The van came in behind me. Travis stopped close enough that Jude could hop out and swing the gate shut. It was an old chain-link thing with a rusty padlock hanging on it. I got down from the truck with the placards Halden had given us. They said asbestos quarantine in big red letters. There was more writing under that, but nobody was going to stand there and read it. The point was to keep people out. Not that I thought there were many people around to keep out. I taped one to each glass door. Jude watched me work. "You think anybody's coming all the way out here?" he asked. "Doesn't matter." "It kind of does." I pressed the last corner flat. "If we screw up in there, nobody's getting here quick," I said. "Phone don't work. Road's empty. So don't screw up." Jude looked past me at the dome. "Good pep talk." Travis locked the gate. The chain rattled once, then went still. Theo came up beside the van with his clipboard tucked under one arm. He had a pencil stuck behind his ear. Jordan was checking the tape at her boots again. "Everybody ready?" I asked. Nobody said yes. That was fine. Ready wasn't much use. Careful was better. The front doors had been chained from the outside, but the lock was already cut. Halden must have done that before they sent us. I pulled the chain free and opened one door. The smell came out first. Old chlorine, wet concrete, something stale under it, like a basement that had been shut up for years. Then I stepped inside. The atrium had ticket counters on both sides. Old cartoon fish were painted on the walls. A big plastic shark hung over the middle of the room with dust on its teeth. Black water covered the tile past the counters. It wasn't deep, maybe an inch or two. Didn't matter. It ran out toward every opening in the place. One way led to a food court with chairs stacked on tables. Another went toward the lazy river. I could see that through the glass doors, a long, dark loop of water sitting there without a ripple. Beyond that was the wave pool. That was just black. The dome ceiling sweated overhead. Drops formed on the metal ribs and fell one at a time. Plink, plink, plink. Jude stood behind me. "Jesus," he said. "Nobody goes past this tile," I told them. "Not yet." Theo leaned around my shoulder. "That's the whole place?" "Looks like it." The water went down every hall. Service doors, restrooms, the little gift shop off to the side. It had found every low spot in the building and stayed there. I didn't like that. "Travis," I said, "get the drain pumps and salt unloaded. Keep it dry on this side." He nodded and went back out. "Jude, Jordan, dehumidifiers here at the entrance, one on each side of the doors. Don't turn them on till we have a dry spot for them." Jordan looked at the water. "Where do you want the salt line?" "Right here, across the tile." She nodded. "Theo, you got the clipboard?" He held it up. "Yeah, I got it. Write down pump readings, salt bags, every reservoir level, everything." "On paper?" "On paper. Signal in here is garbage. Paper doesn't lose bars." Theo looked at the dark screen on his phone, then put it back in his pocket. "Okay. Pump readings, salt, and reservoir levels. Every time you check one." He nodded fast. Travis came through the open door with the first drain pump cradled against his chest. The thing was heavy enough that most men would have dragged it. He set it down dry beside the ticket counter. Then he went back for another. Jude and Jordan wrestled a dehumidifier down the truck ramp. Its wheels bumped across the concrete. Jordan kept one hand on the hose so it wouldn't drag through the wet tile. "Watch that hose," I said. "I have it," she said. They got it inside and parked it behind the line we'd marked off with tape. The other three came after that. Big square machines. They looked like the sort of equipment that could fix anything if you had enough extension cords. But they all made water. That was the part I didn't like. Travis set a salt bag at my feet. I cut it open with my pocket knife and reached in. The salt was coarse. White chunks. It felt dry and sharp in my glove. Everybody watched me walk up to the water. I stopped a few feet short of it. There was dry tile between my boots and the black edge. I made damn sure of that. "Nobody touches standing water," I said. "Say it back to me." Jude rubbed his jaw. "Nobody touches standing water." Jordan said it next. "Nobody touches standing water." Theo swallowed before he said it. "Nobody touches standing water." Travis gave one nod. "Nobody touches." I threw the salt. It hit the edge of the puddle in a white scatter. For half a second, nothing happened. Then the water hissed. Not loud. More like grease in a hot pan. The black edge pulled back from the salt. It moved fast, too, sliding away across the tile in a thin shiver. It stopped several inches farther in. The dry tile behind it stayed dry. Nobody said anything for a second. Theo bent forward. "It moved," he said. "Yeah," I said. Jude looked at the salt on the floor. "That's not normal." "No shit." Jordan touched her crucifix. "It won't cross it," she said. "It didn't," I told her. "That doesn't mean we get careless." I pointed at the first wet stretch by the ticket gates. "Pump that section. We dry it out, salt every door and seam, then we move forward. That's how this goes." Travis lowered the first pump hose toward the water. He stopped before it touched and looked at me. I poured a thick salt line across the tile where the hose would cross back over. "Now," I said. The pump started with a hard cough and a rattle. Water ran up the hose and out through the open door into a drain trench by the parking lot. It took a while, longer than I wanted. The puddle kept shrinking by inches, leaving dark, wet tile behind. Jordan and Jude poured salt across the food court doors, across the hall to the restrooms, across every crack where one floor section met another. Theo wrote it all down. "Pump 1, running," he said. "Salt, 2 bags used." "Keep writing," I said. The air got loud with machinery, pumps rattling, dehumidifiers humming once we had enough dry floor to set them on. Their fans blew warm air across the tile. The condensation kept falling from the dome. At first, then less of it. We worked the entrance until my back hurt and my gloves were white with salt dust. Travis moved bags, Jude checked hoses, Jordan checked the reservoirs before Theo could get to them. "First one is empty," she said. Theo marked it down. "Empty." "Don't just write empty," Jude said. "Write it ain't full." Jordan gave him a look. "It needs to be useful later." "Fine. Empty means empty." The last of the water by the ticket gates went down the pump hose. Travis shut the machine off and the sudden quiet hit me hard. Not quiet exactly. The dehumidifiers were still going, but the water was gone. The tile looked ugly, stained black in places, wet in others. We kept the machines blowing until even that dried up. The air turned hot and chalky from all the salt. Jordan crouched at the far end and pressed 2 fingers to the tile. "Dry," she said. I looked over the work. White lines crossed every doorway. They ran along the floor seams. The cleared strip through the atrium was narrow, maybe 4 feet wide at best. But it was dry. The water sat beyond the salt on both sides, waiting in the food court, waiting at the lazy river doors, waiting everywhere else in that place. I picked up my flashlight. "Single file," I said. "Stay in the channel. Don't crowd each other." Travis went behind me. Jordan came next, then Theo, with Jude taking the rear. I stepped onto the first stretch of cleared tile and led them out of the atrium, salt crunching under our boots. The channel took us past the lazy river doors first. Black water pressed up behind the salt on both sides. It didn't move much, just sat there in that long loop where people used to float around on tubes. Travis stayed close behind me. Jordan was watching the lines at our feet. Theo had his clipboard in one hand and his flashlight in the other. Jude had the first dehumidifier on its wheels. "Stop there," I said. He stopped. "You want to move it or marry it?" Jude asked. "I want the tank checked." Jude looked at the machine like it had insulted him. Then he bent down, popped the little panel open, and pulled the reservoir out. It was clear plastic. Water sloshed around in the bottom. "Quarter full," he said. Theo wrote it down. "First unit quarter full," he said. "Pump 1 still running. Pump 2 empty." "Say the salt too," I told him. Theo looked at his page. "Salt line by lazy river doors is good. No gaps." Jordan crouched by the line anyway. She ran her gloved fingers close over it without touching the wet edge. There was a little break where the tile seam dipped. "Not good," she said. Jude sighed. "What now?" Jordan pointed at it. "That crack is low. If water gets through there, it could come under the line." I poured salt into the seam until it filled up white. "There," Jude said. "Happy?" Jordan stood back up. "It's better." We moved on. The first aid room was just off the main hall. The sign over it had a faded red cross, and one of the letters was hanging loose. Water covered most of the floor inside, but the room was small enough that we could work it from the doorway. Travis carried the pump in. He put it down on dry tile. Jordan laid salt across the threshold and along the base of the cabinets. "Nobody crosses that line," I said. Theo looked into the room. "How do we get the hose in?" I pointed at the salt. "We make it safe first." Travis waited while I poured a second line. Then he fed the hose across, keeping it up off the floor until it reached the water. The pump coughed and started pulling. The black water drew down slow. There were old bandage wrappers floating in it. A plastic cup. One of those paper things they put under you on an exam table. I watched it all circle the pump intake and disappear. Jude checked the dehumidifier again. "Still quarter," he said. Theo wrote that down too. "Don't just say still," I told him. "Write the time." Theo looked at his watch. 10:40. "Good." We cleared the first aid room by 11. The cabinets were dry. The exam table was dry. The floor came up stained and ugly under the pump hose. But dry was dry. The locker corridor took longer. It ran behind the food court and smelled worse than the rest of the place. Wet clothes, maybe. Old mildew. There were benches along both walls and rows of dented metal lockers. Most were shut. A few hung open with broken latches. Water sat in the middle of the hall. We made a channel down one side. Salt, pump, wait. More salt, more waiting. That was pretty much the whole job. Jude kept checking the reservoirs before we moved any machine. He didn't like it, but he did it. I guess after seeing what the salt did to that water, he had decided some things were worth being annoyed about. "Half full," he called after one check. Theo repeated it as he wrote. "Unit 1, half full. Unit 2, quarter. Unit 3, quarter." Jordan was down on one knee by the wall. "There's a gap here," she said. Jude looked over. "There's not." "There is." He walked over and stared at it. It was barely anything. A thin, dark line where the salt had missed the grout. Jude shook his head. "That's nothing." Jordan looked up at him. "That is how it gets through." Nobody talked for a second. Then Jude took the salt bag from my hand and filled the gap himself. By noon, the entrance was behind us. So was first aid and most of the locker hall. The food court was next. It had a fake palm tree in the middle with plastic fronds bent down over the tables. The chairs were still upside down on top of them. Somebody must have closed the place one night and never come back. The water had reached under every counter. We worked one section at a time. Travis ran hoses. Jude moved the machines. Jordan checked every line before any of us put a boot past it. Theo called out readings until his voice got hoarse. Pump 1 good, pump 2 good, first unit half, second unit half. Again, I said. Theo looked at me. I just did. Do it again. He swallowed. First unit half full, second unit half full, third unit just under half, fourth unit quarter. The tanks were filling faster now. That was bad enough. Then I looked up. There were drops hanging from the ceiling over the dry part of the food court. Not many, just little beads along the metal ribs of the dome. They had been there in the atrium too. I knew that. But these looked fresh. More of them every time I checked. The floor under them was dry. They stayed up there, out of reach. None of them fell into our channel. Still, water was gathering over ground we had already cleared. I didn't like it one bit. Jordan saw me looking. "What is it?" she asked. I pointed my light up. She watched the drops for a while. "It's collecting." "Yeah. The dehumidifiers should be pulling it down." "They are," Jude said. "Look at the tanks." That was the problem. Every machine was doing what it was supposed to do, pulling wet out of the air, storing it in plastic boxes that would fill sooner or later. The pumps had their own limits. Everything did. I looked toward the back of the food court. Past the counters was a service door with a little maintenance sign over it. The hall beyond was dark. "How far back does that go?" I asked. Theo checked a wall map beside the counter. "Maintenance offices, I think. There's a storage room, too." "Flooded?" Jude asked. I shined my lamp through the open service door. The black water was waiting down there. "Probably." Jordan touched her crucifix. "We should empty the reservoirs before we move." "We will," I said. "But we're not stopping here." Jude looked at the tanks. "You got a better place in mind?" "Maintenance office." He gave a short laugh. "Sure. Why not go toward more water?" "Because we're running out of room to work," I said. "Get the tanks emptied, check every hose, then we move." Nobody argued after that. It took us a while, longer than I wanted. Travis carried the full reservoirs out through the cleared channel and dumped them beyond the outer doors. Jude checked each one before it went back in. Jordan repaired 2 more thin spots in the salt. Theo marked down every tank and every bag we opened. By the time we were ready, my watch said a little after 4. 6 hours in that place. The food court behind us was dry in strips. White salt lines cut it up like somebody had drawn a map on the floor. Above it, the ceiling still held those little drops. I led them through the service door. The hall rose a little past the counters. Travis came behind me with the pump. Jordan and Theo followed. Jude brought the first dehumidifier, wheels clicking soft over the tile. Then my lamp found the maintenance office beyond the food court. Its floor was a black sheet under the beam. Travis set the pump down just short of the office door. The room had a desk near the back wall, filing cabinets, a busted rolling chair tipped on its side. Black water covered all of it except the top of the desk. "Salt the door," I said. Jordan and Theo laid a line across the threshold. Jude fed the hose over it, holding it up until the pump end touched the water. The pump kicked on with a hard rattle. Water started running out into the food court. It pulled away from the desk, slow at first. There were pencils drifting around, a mouse pad, some old papers that came apart when they hit the hose. Jude watched the water go down. "Place looks like it got shut in a hurry," he said. "Keep the hose off the dry tile," I told him. Yeah. Travis stood by the door with another salt bag. He didn't say anything. He just watched the black edge creep back from the pump. Jordan moved along the wall, checking where the water had been. Her flashlight beam passed over the filing cabinets. "Randy," she said. I looked over. One of the cabinets had tipped forward. Something dark was caught under its bottom corner. Travis went to it before I could tell him to. He grabbed the cabinet by the side and lifted it enough for Jordan to reach underneath. She pulled out a spiral notebook. It was soaked through. The cover had gone soft and black around the edges. Water ran off it in thin lines. "Don't open that," I said. Jordan froze with it in both hands. "Everybody back across the line. Now." Jude looked at me. "It's a notebook." "Back." Nobody argued that time. We got out of the office and back into the dry strip by the food court. Travis stood at one end of the salt line. Jude dragged the hose clear and shut the pump off. The quiet came down again. Jordan held the notebook away from her coveralls. She turned it over carefully. Most of the cover was too smeared to read, but there was a name in the middle. Eddie Rose. I knew it from the folder Halden had given me. 11 contractors missing from Cascade Bay. No bodies. No trace of them except the phone video. Theo leaned in. "That's one of them?" "Yeah," I said. "One of the missing crew." Jordan looked at the swollen pages. Some of it might still be readable. "Read it from there." She opened the cover. The paper made a wet, tearing sound. She went slow, turning each page with one gloved finger. The first few pages were mostly lists, dates, pump checks, notes written in blocky pencil. Jordan read for a while. "They thought it was a burst pipe," she said. "Water around the closed rides, storage rooms, locker hall." "That'd make sense," Jude said. "At first," Jordan said. She read another page. "They pumped it out, put fans in, came back the next morning, and water was in the same rooms again." Theo looked toward the dark office. "Like the water came back?" "Looks that way." Jude shrugged. "Bad pipe, bad drain. Happens." Jordan turned a page. Her face changed a little. "What?" I asked. She held the notebook closer to her light. "They dried rooms overnight, locked the doors. In the morning, there was water inside." Nobody said much after that. The dehumidifiers hummed behind us. I could hear the fans pulling damp air through their metal guts. Every one of them had a reservoir filling up inside. Jordan kept reading. "They found wet footprints past their barricades." Jude rubbed at his jaw. "Could have been one of their own guys." "Maybe," I said. Jordan turned another page. "They started hearing something in the slide tubes." Theo looked up at the ceiling. "The tubes?" "After they shut off the pumps," Jordan said. "They could hear movement inside them." The big tube slide ran over the food court wall somewhere behind us. I looked at the dark curve of it through the service hall door. Nothing moved. Didn't mean much. Jordan got near the end of the notebook. The writing had changed. It was rougher now, like the guy had been pressing too hard or his hand wouldn't hold still. She swallowed once. "This is about another worker." I watched her face. "Go on." "He disappeared by the lazy river. The crew looked for him all night." She flipped the page. "They found him the next day, standing in a doorway." Theo's clipboard slipped against his leg. He caught it before it hit the tile. Jordan read the next part, quiet. "He stood there all day, didn't talk, didn't move. He was dripping." The food court seemed colder all at once. Jude looked at the notebook. "Guy was hurt." Jordan shook her head. "It says his skin looked wet, like it had a sheen on it." I had seen that in the video. The boot print on the tile. Wet, plain as anything. I hadn't known what I was looking at then. Jordan turned the page again. It stuck together. She had to ease it apart with both hands. "What happened to him?" Theo asked. Jordan stared down at the paper. "He came apart." Theo didn't say anything. "He dissolved into a puddle," Jordan said. "Then the puddle moved away." Jude let out a short breath. That's bullshit. It was written by one of the 11, I said. I looked through the glass doors toward the lazy river. Black water sat in the channel beyond the salt. It didn't look like much, just water. That was the whole damn problem. They hadn't drowned those contractors. They hadn't been dragged off somewhere either. That thing had made them part of itself. 11 men turned into wet ground and standing water and whatever else it could use. Jordan got to the last page that hadn't bled into mush. Most of it was unreadable, just gray pencil marks running together. Then she found one line near the bottom. It learned to look dry. Nobody moved. I thought about that tile in the video, the wet boot print where there shouldn't have been one. I thought about every clear floor we had crossed since we came in here. Jude shook his head. That's meaningless. It still needs standing water. We've seen that. We saw one wet print on dry tile, I said. Could have been anything. No. I looked down our cleared channel. It was dry looking. White salt lines at the edges, tile in the middle. Clear tile isn't safe anymore, I said. Not unless it's salted and checked. Theo looked at the floor under his boots. We've been walking on it. We've been walking on salted ground, I said. That stays the rule. Jordan pulled an evidence bag from the supply pouch at her hip. I took it from her and opened it wide. The notebook barely fit. The wet cover smeared against the plastic. I slid it in and zipped the top shut. Then I tucked it inside my jacket. Wave pool, I said. We're moving in there to regroup. The wave pool was through a set of double doors past the service hall. It had been drained years ago, near as I could tell. The bottom sloped down into a deep basin, all painted tile and cracked fake rocks. There was a big wave machine built into the far wall. It looked like a concrete mouth. No water in it. That made it the best place we had. Bring the gear in, I said. Keep it off the floor edges. Travis took 2 dehumidifiers by himself. Jude had the other 2, one at a time. Jordan brought the salt bags and Theo carried the clipboard, plus the radio clipped to his jacket. We got everything down into the bottom of the basin. It was a wide open space, bigger than the food court. There were old lounge chairs stacked along one wall, and a lifeguard stand near the shallow end with a faded red float hanging from it. The pool floor was dry. Not just dry looking either. We salted the whole thing before anybody trusted it. Jordan made us work in strips, salt line, check it, move forward, then another line. It took a while. Jude was assigned to watch the cleared hall behind us. He took 1 dehumidifier and the radio, then headed back up toward the food court. You want me to babysit a hallway now? He asked. I want you watching the tanks. They ain't gonna grow legs. Watch them anyway. He shook his head and pushed the machine away. The wheels made a soft clicking sound over the tile. Theo stood near the deep end, looking up at the ceiling. The dome ribs crossed overhead in wide gray arcs. Most of the lights still worked, though a few flickered. The wave pool had big drain grates all along the bottom. They were dry, too. At least they looked dry. You okay? I asked him. He looked down at the clipboard. Yeah, just thinking about that notebook. Don't let it get in your head. Kind of already is. I couldn't blame him for that. Jordan was checking the salt around the storage pile. Travis stood beside her with his arms folded. Neither of them said much. The machines hummed around us, pulling wet air out of the dome. Theo came closer. I didn't tell you something, he said. I looked at him. He had both hands around the clipboard. His knuckles were white through his gloves. Now's a hell of a time to start secrets. I know. I just figured you should know. Know what? He looked past me toward the doors. Halden didn't hire me like a normal job. I waited. Theo swallowed hard. I got arrested. Before this. I was taking copper wire from a construction site. Not like a little bit either. I had a truck loaded up. He said it fast after that. Like if he got the words out quick, they couldn't stick to him. They caught me leaving. Cops came. They said I was looking at prison. Then this guy came in, talked to me, said Halden could make it go away if I signed on for field work. I looked at him for a second. The job or prison, he said. There wasn't a third option. The wave pool hummed around us. I had heard plenty of guys talk tough about Halden. Most of them had never been in a room where somebody laid out your life like a choice on a menu. Take this deal, or lose everything else. Theo looked like he expected me to tell him what an idiot he was. Instead, I sat down on the edge of the old lifeguard stand. 11 years ago, I said, I got picked up too. Theo blinked at me. For what? Doesn't matter now. He waited anyway. I rubbed my thumb over the scar on my forearm. It was an old habit. Hadn't even noticed I was doing it. Halden gave me the same deal. Work for them, do what they tell you, stay out of trouble, or go sit in a cell. Theo looked at the salt lines around us. You took it. Yeah. Did they keep their word? I let out a breath. They got me out. That part was real. He nodded like that meant something. It only matters if you live long enough to collect on whatever they promised you, I said. So right now, we worry about that part. Theo looked at me then. I saw how young he was. Not kid young exactly, but young enough that he still thought a bad choice was the same thing as being bad. Halden liked people like that. People who thought they owed somebody for the chance to keep breathing. I wasn't letting this place take him. Not if I could help it. Stay close, I told him. I have been. Closer. He gave a small nod. Then I saw water on the wall behind him. At first I thought it was an old stain. The tiles around the deep end had dark marks all over them. Rust, mold, whatever had been growing in this place since it shut down. But this was moving. Little beads of water were climbing the tile. Up. I stared at them. They came from the floor seam by the wall. Tiny, clear drops crawling upward in thin, crooked lines. There was no way they should have been doing that. They went past Theo's shoulder. Higher. The beads gathered under the ceiling. More joined them. They spread across the dry tile overhead, making a dark, wet patch. Theo was standing right under it. Theo, I said. He looked at me. Move. He didn't understand. Not at first. The wet patch widened. It ran over the ceiling like somebody had dumped a bucket upside down and the water had decided to stay there. Theo, move! He turned toward the wall. The whole thing dropped. Not drops. A sheet of black water. Travis hit Theo from the side so hard they both went rolling across the salted floor. The water slapped down where Theo had been standing. It hit the tile with a sound like a tarp snapping in the wind. It spread out fast. Jordan grabbed a salt bag and tore it open. Don't touch it, I yelled. She stopped short. The water was crawling toward the two of them. Travis had Theo pinned under one arm, both of them scrambling backward on their boots and elbows. Then the radio on Theo's jacket crackled. Jude's voice came through loud and broken.
Randy, the tank cracked.
I grabbed for the radio. What tank?
The damn reservoir. Dehumidifier tank split open. Water's everywhere.
The radio hissed. Jude was breathing hard.
It went over the salt line,
he said.
It's flooding the cleared route behind me.
Somewhere beyond the wave pool doors, a machine gave a long metal groan. Then every light in the dome went out. Water started running down the walls. At first, it was just a trickle here and there. Then it came through the tile seams. It ran down the fake rocks. It dropped from somewhere high in the dome. The black water on the floor spread out around us. Nobody move, I said. I couldn't see any of them. Not a damn thing. The lights had gone so fast my eyes hadn't caught up yet. Somebody's boots scraped tile. "Randy," Theo said, "stay where you are." Water hit my shoulder from above, cold through my coveralls. More drops followed it, then a steady rain. The dehumidifiers had been pulling wet out of the air all day. We had dragged their tanks out and dumped them. Jude had one crack open up in the hall. Now all that water was loose again. And the building had plenty more where that came from. "Travis," I called. "Here." His voice came from somewhere close on my left. "Jordan?" "I'm here." "Theo?" "Yeah." Jude's radio hissed somewhere beyond the doors. Then Jude himself yelled through it.
"It's coming down the hall."
I pulled my emergency lamp from my belt and thumbed it on. The beam cut across the basin. The salt lines were gone. Not all at once. They were still there in little white patches, but water had run over most of them and turned them gray. The floor that had been dry 10 seconds ago was shining black from one end to the other. Theo was on his knees near the wall. Travis had one hand locked in the back of his jacket, keeping him down and clear of the water that had dropped where he was standing. Jordan stood a few feet away with a salt bag clutched to her chest. Then something moved in the shallow water by the wave machine. I pointed the lamp at it. A man was standing there. He wasn't really standing. Not like a person does. His legs were clear water with dark stuff rolling through them. His work clothes hung off him in strips. His head tipped to one side. Water poured out of his mouth. Another shape pushed up beside him, then another. They rose from the pool floor one by one, 11 of them. The missing contractors from Halden's folder. Eddie had written about them in that notebook. Men who had gone looking for water and come back as part of it. I saw faces under the water skin. A man with a beard, a bald man, somebody with pale hair plastered flat to his forehead. Their mouths opened and shut, but I couldn't hear words. Theo made a small sound behind me. "Those are people."
"They were,"
Jude said over the radio. His voice was shaking. He probably hated that. The figures stepped out of the water. That was when I knew how bad it was. They walked across the tile toward us, no puddle under them, no black channel leading them. Their feet hit dry spots between the spreading water and left wet prints behind. One of them dragged a hand over the salt line near the deep end. The salt smoked where it touched him. He pulled back. The hand broke apart for a second. Then water flowed down his arm and made it whole again. Jordan saw it too. "They carry it," she said. I looked at the figures coming toward us. Every one of them had water inside. Not blood. Not anything human. The damp had made them into wet ground that could stand up and walk. Clear tile wasn't safe. Salted tile wasn't safe for long either. The rule had broken. "Back up," I said. "Stay together." Travis hauled Theo to his feet. Jordan moved in behind me. I kept the lamp on the figures as we backed toward the shallow end. The 11 men kept coming. Then they stopped. Water ran down from the ceiling harder now. It came through the dome ribs in long ropes. It pooled around the figures' boots and climbed up their legs. They leaned toward each other. I watched one man's shoulder run into the next man's chest. There wasn't any impact. They just flowed together. Arms went soft. Faces stretched out and sank under black water. Jude came through the double doors then. He had his ball cap in one hand and the radio in the other. Water ran off his jacket sleeves. He took 3 steps into the basin and stopped. "What the hell is that?" he said. The figures were gone. In their place stood a wall of water. It rose from the pool floor in a curve, higher and higher, folding over at the top like a wave caught right before it breaks. It had no business staying up. Water doesn't do that. It falls. It runs downhill. It finds a drain. This thing stood there anyway. It was taller than the lifeguard stand, taller than the fake rocks. The top hung over us. Faces moved inside it. Eddie's name had been on the notebook. I didn't know which face was his. They kept coming up in the black surface and sliding back down. Eyes open, mouths working. 11 men caught in one big wet body. "Salt," I said. Jordan handed me the bag. I tore it open and threw a double handful at the thing. The salt hit its front. It hissed loud enough to hear over the rain. The water pulled back where the salt struck. A hole opened in the middle of it, dark and ragged. For 1 second I could see through the thing to the wall behind it. Then water rushed in from both sides. The hole closed. I grabbed more salt and threw it again. Jude did the same. Travis ripped open another bag and flung it hard with both hands. Every hit made it pull away. Every white patch hurt it. But the wave was huge. We could salt one spot, maybe two. The rest of it kept standing there. Water rolled over the hurt places and covered them back up before we could do anything with them. The thing leaned forward. Its top curled farther over us. Faces slid beneath the surface like fish under dirty ice. I held the empty salt bag in my hand and looked at that wall of water. Salt could hurt it, but not enough. Not something that big. Jude grabbed the last full salt bag from beside the dehumidifier. "Jude, no," I said. He had both hands on it already. His face had gone pale under the red of his cheeks. Water ran off his jacket cuffs and dripped from the brim of his cap. "This ain't enough," he said. "We got more damn salt." He tore the bag open. The thing leaned over us. Jude swung the bag up and threw the whole load at it. White salt went across the black water in a hard cloud. For a second it looked good. The front of the wave pulled apart where it hit. Steam came up. The faces inside it twisted and went away from the salt. Jude stood there breathing hard. "See?" he said. Then the water came around both sides. It moved fast. Not like a wave breaking. More like two walls had been waiting for a gap between them. They curled past the salt and joined behind Jude. He turned. "Randy." The water took him at the knees first. Jude went down hard. His hands slapped the tile and he tried to push himself up. The salt bag was still hanging off one wrist, empty and flapping around. I started toward him. Travis caught my arm. "Don't," Jordan said. The black water climbed Jude's back. He yelled once, a raw sound. Then it rolled over his shoulders and head. I could still see his hand. It came up through the surface for half a second. Fingers spread wide. Then the water pulled it under. The whole thing drew back toward the deep end. Jude's face came up in it. His ball cap was gone. Water ran down his cheeks and out of his mouth. His eyes were open, but they weren't looking at me. Not really. Then his face slid down under the black surface with all the rest. Nobody said anything. I had watched that full bag hit it. Salt hurt the damn thing. It had hurt it plenty, but there was too much of it now. We could throw every bag we had into that pool, and all we'd do was make it mad in a few spots. That was the plan gone. The pumps, the salt, the samples, all of it. I looked at the equipment piled around the basin. Dehumidifiers, hoses, salt bags, the radio Jude had dropped by the doors. None of it mattered more than the 3 people still standing behind me. "Leave it," I said. "Truck, now." Theo looked at me. "What about Jude?" "He's gone." Theo's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Jordan had one hand on her crucifix. Travis was still holding my arm. I pulled free and got my emergency lamp up. "Jordan, take the rear when I tell you. Theo, you stay between me and Travis. Don't get ahead of me. Don't fall behind him." Theo nodded too fast. "Okay, yeah, I got it." "Say it back." I stay between you and Travis. Good. Move. We ran for the double doors. The floor was slick under my boots. Water kept coming down from the dome. It ran off the fake rocks and over the pool tile. Behind us, the big thing made a sound like water going down a drain, only there wasn't any drain big enough for it. I didn't look back again. The doors stood open ahead of us. The service hall beyond was dark except for my lamp. Its beam shook over the tile as I ran. Water covered most of the hall. Not deep, maybe ankle deep in places, but it moved wrong. Little streams ran up the walls. Water gathered in cracks and climbed out of them. It was like the whole building had sprung leaks at once. Left side, I said. We stayed tight to the wall. The cleared route from the entrance had seemed like a good idea when it was dry. Salted tile, marked turns. We had worked it step by step all the way in. Now the salt lines were mostly gray mush. Theo splashed behind me. Sorry, he said. Sorry, I can't see where I'm putting my feet. Just keep moving. Travis stayed right behind him. I could hear his boots more than see him. Jordan was farther back. Her lamp had gone out with the dome lights, same as the rest of ours. Mine was all we had. The beam found the food court doors. They were half shut. I got through first and held one open with my shoulder. Theo came next. Travis pushed him through. Jordan was last. Something hit the other side of the door. Not hard, just a wet smack. Jordan shoved past me. I let the door swing shut. It didn't latch. Water came under it in a thin black line. Keep going, I said. The food court looked different in the dark. All those tables and chairs were just low shapes. The old counter signs hung above us. My lamp caught bits of plastic trays and wet tile. Water ran around the legs of the tables toward the hall we needed. The maintenance office was off to our right. Its door stood open. I saw the black water inside it. Saw the place where we had found Eddie's notebook. It was full again now. Full enough that it spilled across the threshold. Theo looked that way. Don't, I said. He snapped his eyes back to me. We moved through the tables. My boots kicked one chair aside. It scraped loud across the tile and I damn near stopped breathing. The sound went on too long. Then something answered from behind us. A wet footstep. Not close. Maybe back in the wave pool. Maybe somewhere along the service hall. Didn't matter much. Faster, I said. We got to the lazy river doors. The salt we had laid across them was gone. Water had washed it into little piles by the wall. Beyond the glass, the river channel was full and black. It had risen over the edge in places and spread across the walkway. The route went around it. I led them into the narrow strip by the lockers. My lamp found water moving ahead of us, coming from the direction of the atrium. Randy, Jordan said. I see it. The water was covering more of the tile by the second. It ran in narrow streams at first, then joined together. The floor had a black shine all the way down the hall. There was no safe ground anymore. Not really. But the exit was close. I could see the pale shape of the atrium doors ahead through the dark, the last threshold before the front entrance. We had put down extra salt there because it was the one way in and out. A last line. Almost there, Theo said. Don't talk. Watch your feet. He did. He kept his head down and stayed between me and Travis, just like I told him. Jordan came behind Travis now. I could hear her breathing, slow and even, though I knew she had to be scared. The lamp beam bounced over the last stretch of tile. Then it found the salt line by the exit doors. Water was rushing along the floor toward it. The water hit the salt line. It ran across the tile in thin black streams. The white salt turned gray where it touched. Then it started to melt down into the floor. Keep moving, I said. The outer doors were maybe 10 feet ahead, glass doors with the empty lot behind them. I could see the truck out there under the dead parking lights. Jordan slipped. Her boot went out from under her when the water came through a break in the salt. She dropped hard on one knee. Her hand hit the tile. "Jordan," I said. Travis grabbed her under both arms and hauled her back toward the dry patch by the doors. Theo jumped aside so he wouldn't step in the water. He had one hand on the wall and the other over his mouth. Jordan's coveralls were wet up to her knee. Not soaked, just dark and shiny like she had walked through a puddle, but the water was moving up her leg. It crawled under the plastic sheeting, up past her thigh. "Get her outside," I said. Travis got his arms around her from behind. He tried to lift her clear. Jordan made a sound then, not loud, more like she had run out of breath. "Wait," she said. The water kept going. It moved across her stomach under the coveralls. Her hands shook where they held Travis's wrist. She looked down at them like they belonged to somebody else. "Jordan, we're almost out," Theo said. She looked at him. Her face had gone wet too. Her skin shone under my lamp. Little beads ran down her cheeks, but she wasn't crying. They came out of her hairline, out of the corners of her eyes. "Randy," she said. Her voice was slow. Each word took time. I crouched beside her. The water around her boots was spreading over the tile. It had come through the ruined salt line and gathered at her feet. "We're getting you up," I said. "No." She swallowed. "Leave me. I'll open the door for it." Theo shook his head right away. No, we can carry you." Jordan looked down at the black water around her boots. "It can cross with me." Travis tightened his hold on her. He didn't say anything. He just set his feet harder against the tile. I looked at the doors. The water behind us was coming through the atrium hall. Not fast yet. It was sliding along the walls and under the old benches, but it was coming. Jordan lifted one hand toward her neck. Her little silver crucifix was caught under the collar of her coveralls. She fumbled at it twice before she got the chain free. Her fingers didn't want to close around it. Water shone over her knuckles. "Take this," she said. "Jordan, please." She pressed it into my hand. The metal was cold. The chain slid wet over my palm. I closed my fist around it. Then Jordan's legs gave out. Travis caught her before she hit the floor. He had her under the arms still, but her body went soft in his grip. Not limp, soft. Water ran down her coveralls in black lines. "Move," Travis said. He pulled her toward the outer doors. Jordan's boots dragged over the tile. One came loose and stayed behind. Her lower leg was gone under the wet coverall. There was just water there, rolling inside the plastic. Theo backed into the door and shoved it open. Cold night air came in around us. "Come on," I said. Travis got Jordan across the last strip of tile. Her shoulder hit the door frame. For 1 second I thought he had her. Then she came apart. Her coveralls dropped flat. The plastic sheet around her legs collapsed in a wet heap. Water poured out of the sleeves and ran across the threshold. Travis stumbled backward with both hands empty. Jordan was gone. The puddle moved toward the open door. I grabbed Theo by the jacket and shoved him outside. Travis came after him. I kicked the door shut behind us. The water hit the glass from inside. It spread over the bottom of the door. It pressed black against the glass, then pulled back. I could see it moving around Jordan's coveralls on the other side. It didn't come through. The door rattled once in its frame. Then the water slid away into the dark atrium. "Truck," I said. We ran. The parking lot was bigger than it had looked driving in. Empty acres of cracked pavement. Dead weeds slapped at my boots as we crossed it. The rain from inside the dome had not reached out here, but the air was wet and cold. Theo was right beside me. He was breathing hard. One of his gloves was gone. His bare hand kept opening and closing like he was trying to make sure it still worked. Travis got to the truck first. He yanked open the passenger door and shoved Theo inside. Then he went around to the back. I got behind the wheel. The keys were still where I left them. I turned them and the engine coughed once. For half a second, I thought it wasn't going to start. Then it caught. "Travis," I yelled. He climbed into the back through the roll-up door. I saw him pull it down in the side mirror. I put the truck in gear and drove. The tires spun on loose gravel at the edge of the lot. Then they caught pavement and we shot past the faded sign. The rainbow was just a pale shape in my headlights. Behind us, something groaned. I looked in the mirror. The dome roof had started to sag. Water pushed up under the white skin of it. Great dark lumps moved beneath the fabric and plastic. One of the support ribs bent down slow, then snapped. The sound came through the truck walls. Theo had both hands on the dashboard. "Don't stop," he said. "I ain't stopping." The access road ran straight through the fields. Dead corn stood on both sides in gray rows. My headlights caught the stalks and threw them back at us. Another crack came from behind. The dome disappeared behind the corn. I kept driving. The road turned to dirt. The truck bounced hard enough to throw Theo against the door. He didn't complain. Travis didn't make a sound from the back. I drove until the headlights showed nothing but corn and black sky. Then I pulled off between two rows and killed the engine. The truck stood still in the dark cornfields. Cascade Bay was out of sight behind us. I had Jordan's crucifix clenched in my hand. 2 weeks after I pulled that truck into the corn, I was sitting in an office with windows on two sides. Halden's Springfield building was downtown, big enough to have a lobby with polished stone and a woman behind a desk who looked at your badge before she let you through. I'd worked out of trailers, warehouses, trucks, and one converted supply closet over the years. Never had an office like this. Corner office, too. I'd wanted one for 11 years. That was the stupid part. I had wanted the glass, the clean desk, the view over the parking lot. I used to think it meant you had made it out of the part where you did the work yourself. The desk was dark wood with no scratches on it. There was a new chair behind it, black leather, the kind that leaned back smooth when you shifted your weight. A computer sat in the middle, phone on one side, empty blotter in front of me. Outside, cars moved through the wet streets below. Eliana stood by the desk with a folder tucked under one arm. She looked right at home in there. Her blazer was dark. Her hair was cut neat as always. She had probably sat in 100 offices like this, and never once cared who had sat in them before. She set a paper in front of me. "This reflects your new salary," she said. "It is double your previous rate." I looked at the number. It was more money than I had ever made in a year. It didn't look like much sitting there. "Good," I said. Eliana nodded once. "The title is Site Chief. Your office is permanent, provided your work remains satisfactory." There was a framed map on the wall behind her. Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, Oklahoma. Little red marks all over it where Halden had projects going. Some were probably clean jobs. Mold in an old school. Flood damage in a basement. A chemical spill somebody needed buried under enough paperwork. Some weren't. I leaned back in the chair. It gave under me. "What did you put down for Cascade Bay?" I asked. Eliana put the second folder on the desk but kept her hand on top of it. "Cascade Bay is officially flooded and forgotten," she said. That was all. No mention of the dome coming down. No question about the truck parked in the corn. No question about why Travis and Theo had come back without the others. Nothing about Jude. Nothing about Jordan. Nothing about the men in the wave pool who had gone in before us and never got to come out. Halden had a way of making things small. You filled out the right form. You checked the right box. Then a place where people died became a closed site. A name became a line on a report. If it was bad enough, it became no line at all. I looked at the folder under Eliana's hand. "That's it?" I said. "The site is closed," she replied. I almost laughed at that. Didn't have it in me. The office was quiet except for the air unit clicking overhead. Somewhere down the hall, a copier started up. Paper ran through it, one sheet after another. Eliana took her hand off the folder. "Your next assignment requires discretion," she said. I didn't open it yet. She waited a second, maybe expecting me to ask where it was or what had happened there. That was how the old Randy would have done it. Ask questions until somebody with a better office told me to stop, then take the job anyway. I had kept chasing this room, kept telling myself I could protect the people under me once I had enough say, more money, better title, better access to the people making the calls. It hadn't done Jude any good. It hadn't done Jordan any good either. My hand went into my jacket pocket before I really thought about it. The little crucifix was still there. I'd kept it with me since the truck, through the drive back, through the reports, through the meetings where people used words like incident and exposure and final disposition. The chain came out tangled around my fingers. It was small, silver gone dull from water and dirt. The cross lay against my palm. Eliana looked at it. She didn't ask about that either. I opened the top drawer of the desk. It was empty except for a pencil tray and a few company pens still in plastic. The drawer slid out easy. No grit in the runners. No rust. Nothing sticking. I set the crucifix in the back corner. For a second I kept my hand there. Then I shut the drawer. The click sounded louder than it should have. Eliana moved the folder closer to me. There was a pen laid across it. Black ink. Halden logo on the side. "This needs your signature," she said. I opened the folder. There were photographs inside. Maps. A short page with a site number and a location. I didn't read past the first few lines. Didn't need to. I knew the shape of it already. Unlisted place. Urgent containment. Limited personnel. Keep it quiet. Same job. New folder. My name was printed at the bottom of the assignment page. I picked up the pen. For a while I just held it there. Then I signed. Eliana watched me do it. When I finished, she took the page, looked it over, and put it back in the folder. "Human Resources will have your updated materials by the end of the day," she said. "Sure." She turned for the door. I looked up at her. "Eliana." She stopped with one hand on the handle. The words I had were useless. What happened to them? What did you do with the reports? What happens when it comes back? None of it would change anything. And she wouldn't answer the parts that mattered anyway. So I said nothing. Eliana waited another second. Then she left. The door shut behind her. Rain had started while she was in there. I hadn't noticed at first. It came down light, tapping against the windows. The kind of rain that made the streets below shine black. I got up and found a towel in the small cabinet under the counter. White and folded tight. Probably meant for coffee spills. I carried it back to the desk and set it at the corner by my right hand. It looked out of place there. The signed folder sat open in front of me. The next job waiting neat and flat under the office lights. Rain struck the glass harder. I flinched. Then I watched it run down the window and did not look away.